Hello and welcome to another episode of Hames Hot Mic, sponsored by Simpson Notaries. I'm continuing to explore some more regional issues on the show, and today we're going to be talking about the Metis Nation in British Columbia, and hopefully some old-fashioned politics, with the Metis Nation's Minister of Economic Development and Chilliwack's own Louis Jaeger, after this quick break. Welcome back. I'm pleased to welcome Louis Jaeger to today's show. Like so many people on the show, I could literally use up the entire time simply introducing him. My knowledge of Louis began, like so many others in this community, as a restaurateur. Bravo Restaurant established a new standard for excellence in Chilliwack. After he sold the restaurant, Louis dug into politics in a big way. Was a federal Liberal candidate in 2015. Following that, he completed his MBA in Business and Aboriginal Leadership at SFU. And like most guests who appear on this show, the list of volunteer boards and organizations that Louis has served with is simply too long to mention, as are the awards that he received for his advocacy and for his businesses. Welcome very much to you, Louis. Pleasure to have you.
Hey, Swale, bonjour, hello, it's great to be here. Nice introduction. I feel really old now.
Thank you. Well, you should look a lot older than you do for all the things that you've accomplished. I think one of the things that people are knowing Louis Jaeger about more and more is your connection to the Metis Nation of British Columbia. And I wanted to start there and say, I think everybody knows the word Métis, and they know that it's part of Canada's history. But I'm not sure people have a real depth of understanding of what that word means. So give us a little history lesson, Métis. What is Métis, and what does it mean being Métis?
Yeah, that's a good question. Right off the bat, it's, it's like, who are you, right? Yeah. A lot of people don't even really know you're around, and we've been out here for quite a while. We have 6 communities in the Lower Mainland. There's over 5,000 citizens, and things have just been getting better and better, especially with this government as well and recognition. The Métis have been around for quite a while. It was sort of like a genesis and how we sort of created our own culture, our own language, pretty well from the prairies and the fur trade. So, it's a lot of it was, where do you fit, right? We were always called road allowance people because nobody really wanted any responsibility for us, whether that be the federal government or any provincial jurisdiction. And so it's been a real struggle, a lot of poverty for a lot of families, and always on the go. But I think that's kind of who we were in the first place, in the buffalo hunt, and a lot of our laws came from that. But also through our mothers as well, and that was a lot of our First Nations, Cree, Ojibwe, Saulteaux, and our movement out west. Trying to get our communities established, holding on to our language. Louis Riel was, put it the best way. It would be, 100 years, and it would be our culture that would bring us back, and that's basically it. So the government couldn't move us out. They couldn't destroy our culture. They couldn't, make us invisible. And so here we are. It's a new day, and I'm really loving the work that I do right now.
So talk a little bit about your role and the work that you're doing in British Columbia as the Minister of Economic Development for Metis Nation here.
Yeah, so that's a real ground up process right now, because the funding has really improved. Our recognition we're still struggling. Though we're recognized as S35 holders in the Constitution with the federal government, we don't quite have that with the provincial government. But things are definitely getting better. We have a great minister, Murray Rankin's in now for the provincial government, so he has a lot of experience with Métis people, Métis rights. He's very conscious of where we stand in British Columbia. Our right to exercise are hunting and fishing. We're not quite there. Other provinces are. They have that, Clint, but we don't have it in British Columbia. We haven't made a test case, but, we'll see what tomorrow brings. Hopefully it'll be through negotiation and not the court process.
Well, it was a court case in 2003, I think, called the Polly decision that developed essentially a test to say if you want to be recognized under Section 35, as you have said, there's a test that you have to kind of apply yourself to, and then you can be recognized as Métis, correct?
Yeah, sure. I like a test, right? I know. I always say that, but we had our own language. Our cultures being accepted by your community. Absolutely. And that was a good case because that really did give us a lot of our rights. And our identity too. It really,
It applied at that time to just a small. It was put forward by a small group in the East. But it's been applied certainly across the spectrum. Now, you raised the issue of the province's recognition of the United Nations Declaration and saying that they will abide by and acknowledge that. What implications are there for Métis in British Columbia for that acknowledgement by the province? You said they're not quite there yet, but what are you looking for out of that declaration? What do you think that's going to bring?
Well, that declaration gives us another tool in our toolkit. Because you need two partners to be willing to be able to do business together, and especially in economic development. If we're at the table and they're consulting, yes, we have 38 communities right across British Columbia. So we want to be consulted as well as S35 holders, and the government certainly should have an interest in that because we want to be self-sustainable and we want to be able to take care of our people and to be able to provide services and programs. But we can't do that if we don't have any revenue stream. So it's in the government's best interest to use all of that and to help us be more independent and to be self-governing. So
other Indigenous people in British Columbia are defined by Indian Act bans and land that was reserved for them. In Chilliwack, we have many examples of that. And then traditional territories that have been defined through the treaty process and other processes that say this is your traditional territory for the purposes of Section 35 or otherwise. What do Métis communities have that's similar? So there's a basis for those discussions on when consultation should take place or when accommodation must be made.
Yeah, that's a really good question because, being landless in British Columbia definitely is of a disadvantage. But being, in the Constitution as S35 holders is an equality. So people do say, you have less rights than First Nations. No, we don't. We have equal rights as Aboriginal people. We just have different rights, that's all. Our land bases, we have settlements in Alberta, and that was done by Premier Lougheed, helped bring that to fruition, because he saw that there was a need to have a place, a home for the Métis that were there. A big case that was won in Manitoba now as well. Those cases are settled. We haven't seen the results or fruition. That's still kind of in Manitoba's court. They're kind of the big daddy of all of this stuff here. Yeah. We have several governments, British Columbia, Alberta, Saskatchewan, Ontario, but Manitoba, they hold all the cards, and we try to be as friendly as we can. But we demand a little bit of respect too, because those other provinces do have rights, and they've asserted those rights. We're still the youngest child in the background. We haven't done that yet, so we're still making our way in the province and letting people know that yes, we are here. We want to negotiate, and we want to be part of this economy as well.
And that would be part of the future aspirations, would be to develop a land base that you could then begin to look at those other things around. So that's interesting. So your job in terms of economic development is to how do I parlay into what we have into those partnerships within British Columbia that will result in economic development for Métis people in British Columbia.
Yeah, and we've got some great, First Nations around us. I mean, I've been working with Stalo out here for years. Look at Derek, right? Derek Epp, Chief of Chackton. I don't know if you know this or not, but they've invested in Saskatchewan, so it's one of the largest dairy farms. Yeah. So this is what I'm talking about, economic development. And, we have money now, and we want to be investors. We want to be involved in different projects. We can buy land, right? And that's what a lot of First Nations are doing now as well. They're buying land, developing it, doing partnerships. We have an economic, I sit also on the Métis Financial Corporation of BC. So, I mean, there's a lot of things that we're doing. We even have a community in Princeton, Clint. This is a good one. And they've just signed an MOU, right, with the city of Princeton. So this is what I'm talking about, economic development. So it's kind of missing a little bit in Chilliwack here. But Ken's got my number, and he does call me. So I'll sit at any table. And if there's any way that I can help with entrepreneurship or procurement in any which way at all, just give me a call.
Well, I think it's a question of education, so that the aspirations are well known in a community, and knowledge around the issues, the constitutional issues that provide the framework, the legislative framework for what you need, and then just getting the message out that you're a part of it. And that's part of one of the reasons I wanted to have you on the show. Certainly it delved my mind into some of these issues so that I'd understand it, and then hopefully people who watch will be able to say, oh, okay, I didn't know that. I didn't understand that aspect of what, I think everybody knows what the definition of a person who carries the name Métis is, but I don't think they have a real understanding of what rights come with that, and how does that apply to not just Section 35, which is the broad sort of existence of Aboriginal rights and title in the country, but there are other benefits that flow from other sections as well that we have to be aware of. So it's fascinating work, and we probably don't get to have you in Chilliwack as much as we used to, because your job is truly provincial, so it's your job to be traveling around the province and monitoring and helping in all of those areas as a cabinet minister would. Where are some interesting projects that you have hope will come to fruition in British Columbia right now?
Well, the northeast there's a lot going on there. Also even with the pipeline as well. We're involved with the Western Indigenous Pipeline, and we partner as much as we can with First Nations, and just really trying to get our communities self-sufficient. There hasn't been a lot of money coming down the pipeline. Now it's starting to happen. So we really are ground up at the moment. If I'd love to give you a figure and say, my department brings in this amount of money, but you know what? There's nowhere to go but up right now. And we're developing, and we're building capacity right now. And we've always had a good working relationship with First Nations, at least here in British Columbia. It might not be that way across the country, but we want to look at the Northeast. I think that's it. There's a lot of low-hanging fruit, too, even with the provincial government, as far as First Citizens Fund, banking, our financial corp, doing, partnering, bank loans. I mean, you can go on and on to insurance. I mean, Manitoba is just amazing. They have their own pharmacies. Yeah. So there's a lot of economic opportunity, but we just need to figure out where we can go first, and everything that we do to build the capacity and to move forward is in the interests of our communities, and they're in the interests of our people. And we're doing everything in a very gentle way. We are visitors on this land as well, and we always acknowledge the territory that we're on. I'm happy to be here on Stalo and Chackton as well. And so that's very important to us, that we tread softly on the land that we're on.
Well, I think anybody who would be looking at Louis Jaeger in this community would understand the strength of your relationship with the whole community, and especially the Stalo community as well. I want to shift gears a little bit because there's another Louis Jaeger out there that has been involved in politics, and big P politics. Louis is a member of the Liberal Party, I think still. He was very concerned, as many of us were, with the treatment of an MP from this area. And Louis, at that time, you said, you know what, I'm backing out until this situation resolves. How is that? I guess Ms. Raybould is now an independent MP. How is that situation resolving with you and with Liberals?
Yeah, it's always a good one because I've always had that little activism in me, and and going to bat for people as much as I can. And yeah, that's just a situation that came up, and I'm very connected to a lot of people here in Stalo, and they were the ones who said, Louis, back up a little bit. And I was going to go for a second run, had a great run, 17,411. Oh, did I remember that number? Am I bitter? I'm not bitter, but what a great experience. And, I put in another 4 years, and I was ready to go again against the longtime Conservative gentleman here. And your values. Your values have to align with what you're doing, and I'm not willing to sell out to anyone, to anything, for anything, and that is what is true to me, and it's true to the values that I hold, and it's true as a Métis person that I'm honest, and that's how my politics kind of roll.
Is there a future? Is there a future politician at a federal level that's going to be named Louis Jaeger?
Well, I'm just elected in my position now, and I'm really enjoying the work that I do. So I just figure I'm still a reasonably young gentleman, and but I would like to touch a little bit on being a gay man in politics.
Oh, that was coming next. That was my next.
So maybe
question.
we'll come back and we'll get on that topic.
Yeah, I'll tell you what.
Really
let's leave that. I got to take a short break and acknowledge our sponsor. Our sponsor makes this show possible, Simpson Notaries. We really are appreciative of the fact that they've stayed with us through this season, and want to take just a break to acknowledge them. We'll be right back with Louis Jaeger. Welcome back. My guest today is Louis Jaeger, and we were talking about Louis's potential future in politics. And one of the things I know that is a subject we've discussed before. What is it like being a gay politician or wannabe politician in this community? And I suspect that has more relevance than on a national stage. It seems to be less of an issue the higher up or the farther away we go, but it seems to be something that I feel has some lingering effects in this community. What's that like for you?
Yeah, it's there's always firsts, right? So, and I'm very open, and I always want to be honest, and I want to be out because I think it's important for not just my kids, but your kids and their friends that they can look up and they can say, that's attainable. I can do that. It's not impossible. I can be who I am. I can be honest, and have a life just like anybody else, and love who I want to love. And so it was difficult a while ago, maybe, coming into Chilliwack, and a lot of comments for that, and I came in with my longtime partner as well, and we opened a restaurant, very successful, and had drag queens even at at New Year's, and who wouldn't want to go see Bette Midler at New Year's? Goodness sake, if it's right in Chilliwack. And there's definitely a more educated crowd, maybe more traveled crowd that likes what we were doing, and we're very open and just comfortable. Just comfortable. People are people, but in the political world, Clint, that's not always the way. So in this, people are really organized, in at least maybe not so much now. We're seeing a little bit of a move as the city is growing and a more of a liberal attitude. We can see that definitely with the election of the 2 NDP MLAs now. I think that's significant to what was happening. But we could always see that needle moving a little bit more to the center and people being more comfortable. Maybe
Well, I've often thought. I mean, my background was working with people with disabilities, and especially people with developmental disabilities. And when I started in that field, the Earth was just cooling and the dinosaurs had just left when I started there, it seems. And there was so much prejudice in the community even about that, because it was something the community didn't know. So it was something different. And I really feel like you broke a lot of ground coming into the community, because you weren't a person who was saying, I'm just going to sit quietly, I'm not going to acknowledge who I am or who I love. You came into the community, you said, hey, I'm Louis, and I got a restaurant. And I think there's a and I should be shutting up and letting you talk, but there's a thing that I've noticed called the competence deviance hypothesis. And it's an odd thing that when somebody comes into a situation and they display amazing competence, and I use deviance in the nicest way, not in a bad way, the things that people perceive about them that might be deficits melt away so quickly when you demonstrate competence in some way. And gosh, Louis Jaeger coming into this town, there wasn't, and there still isn't, a better restaurant that I've ever been to than yours. And your ability to host people there and make people feel welcome just modeled this behavior that said, wait a minute, it sort of took some of that away. So you did, I feel like you broke a huge amount of ground for other people, and that there are people in this community today who owe you that, in a sense, in that you were a bit of a pioneer.
Wow, that's just, those are great words. Can I leave now? I think we should end the show. But, it comes from the hospitality trade too. My mother was always a character. She was, I think humor is an Aboriginal trait as well. We love to laugh, and especially laugh at ourselves. But being a bartender, I think you're almost a psychologist. So throughout life, and I spent many years of pouring, maybe 3 too many martinis for a couple of people, and, being there for them. And I'll tell you one story right now of a woman that came into Bravo, and she was devastated. And she came in a couple times, and finally she broke up, and she opened up to me, and she said her son was gay, and she was very worried, with AIDS, and that he was gonna, people were gonna make fun of him, and I assured her, I said, you know what, let him be. As much as he can be. And I said, you know what, the one thing you never have to worry about is losing your son to another woman. You're going to gain another son. And that changed everything for her. It's just turning it around and just looking at it a different way. And to this day, she still thanks me for saying that to her.
Well, and it might be how I choose to live my life. It may not be, but to me, it's almost ubiquitous now that there are many people in my life that are gay. I have friends that are transgendered. I have friends from a whole wide spectrum, and it's almost disappeared into the background.
Yeah.
Honestly, you had to remind me that we were going to talk about this, because it's just not something that it's not one of those things that's foreground anymore. It's background for me.
Yeah.
So,
But we can certainly talk about a lot of things, that affect it, like how the city's handling it. We have all of these, new documents that are coming out, and no rainbow crosswalks. And, I was pretty adamant. I wrote a few letters, and, the policy J11, and, the first thing that should have been in that whole study, and, group advisory inclusion, get rid of that policy. Right? That should be your number one thing. I still read through it before I came here. It's not in there, right? So, I mean, you still have these policies in place, though you're trying to placate, you know, to being open and inclusive, and, you know, you put up a couple of murals and, you know, let's do the duty, right? You know, put your money where your mouth is, make some deals with First Nations people, make some deals and some procurement. Let's put a rainbow crosswalk in if it's going to make people feel comfortable. How hard is that? How divisive is that, right? So I think we're at that stage now, and we're grown up enough to put on our big boy pants, walk into City Hall, and somebody say, you know, get your you know what together and do what's right. Every other community has. Why does this have to be an issue? At 2021.
I think it's going to take more time than you or I might want it to, but I think we will get there. I think that the world is changing slowly. My experience, and you know, I had 18 years in local government and lots of time after that to mentoring and helping and doing other things. This community moves very slowly on some of these issues, and it takes pioneers. It takes people that are willing to kind of take the risks to move out there and say those things and do those things, and it does slowly change. It's never as fast as we want it to, but it is changing. This is as you said, it's a much different community than it was 20 years ago. Yeah. And when did you start Bravo? When did you come here? It must be.
That was 2004. I moved here in 1997, and Eldon Unger always says, you know, make sure you thank me for because he developed the area down by Peach Road, and I still live there today. I love the river, and you know, it's. Yeah, it's a great place to live, but it has definitely changed, and you know, you can't give up, right? You have to keep. If it's not me, you know, I've cleared a path for somebody that's going to be behind me, Clint, and I think that's what I walk away and I take away if I never run for politics. I'm not saying never, like I say, but if they want my experience, and you know, the people of Chilliwack, the citizens, say, hey, you know, you have a degree in business, you've done your homework, your heart's in the right place. You know, even in the election, I was the only person who publicly came out and said I wanted safe use sites. It was one of the pillars that was missing. I know that. I sat on the Chilliwack Healthier Communities long enough and talked to enough people to educate myself. And all I say is let's all educate ourselves on putting our best foot forward for this community and growing in a responsible, an ethical, and you know, an inclusive way. And I think we're on the right track. I think we have a very good mayor. I supported Ken. I've known Ken for years. He is a leader that leads from within and lets other people shine. And he definitely, you know, I hope he does another 4 years, because I think we're seeing things move in the right direction. Is it everything we want? You know what? I don't know. Politics is never the whole package.
It's never absolute. You know? It's always, you take the gains that you can take,
Absolutely.
and you move forward, and you try to do it in a way that is as respectful of the whole community as possible. And we have a very diverse community, and that's can be very good news. It can also create challenges when diversity has its challenges if you try to make everybody happy. And sometimes we do the best we can with that. I feel like, again, with so many of the people that come on the show, I could spend 2 or 3 hours. We could talk about local politics. We could talk about federal politics. We could talk about Métis politics, or we could talk about LGBTQ issues. It's great to have people on the show that have that depth and breadth of experience. So I'm going to have you come back at some point, and we'll talk about other things and many, many issues I want to personally follow around Métis in British Columbia, because there's so many fascinating issues to me about rights and title, and about land, and about economic development, and about the implementation of the UN Declaration and how that impacts Métis as well as other Indigenous people in British Columbia. But we'll have to do it another time, because we're playing out of time, so I'm going to have you come back, Louis.
That's a deal.
At
That's
some
a deal.
point. Thank you so much. My guest, as you all know today, was Louis Jaeger. Impossible to use one word or title to describe you, Louis, perhaps a passionate activist on behalf of his culture and community. And as always, I'd love to hear more about the show from you, our guests. So please feel free to send me an email with your thoughts. Until next time, thanks for watching Hames Hot Mic.